This video is to help guide you through the GPM invoice approval process. I'll start by showing you where to locate the SOP for this. So you can find it in shared /forms archive /superintendent /systems. And the file name you're looking for is going to be really similar to this, GPM vendor payment tracking. And you just want to get the latest date for that file, and that'll be the updated SOP. And it's also in the next slide here on this video. If you pause the screen here, you can follow along with the SOP and see the basic guidelines for how to do this task. This is the second half of the SOP, so remember not to skip this when you're going through this process. So right now we're going to figure out where to locate the live GPM for these current customers, and also I'm going to teach you how to navigate the GPM right after this. So if you go in Ignite to the shared /current customers the customer's job name and code .structure /production .structure, and then we're going to open the latest and updated GPM that we're working on for that customer. When placing the OS bid cost amounts in the GPM, there's a few things you're going to want to know about this Excel document. So I'll go ahead and show you what those are. So once we're in the correct jobs GPM, we're going to go ahead and check out this vendor name. We're always going to make sure that's matching with the current vendor that we're looking at for the invoice approvals. So the next thing we're going to match up is the phase. So whether it's demo, windows, framing, plumbing, so on, you're going to want to make sure that the correct vendor and the correct phase are both matching. And over here in the description, this is letting you know whether it's labor or material that we're billing for. So whether it's labor or material, you're going to want to be sure to put it in the correct description box labeled labor or material. That way we can price it accurately. So column E, the PM budget column, is put in ahead of time by the project manager, and it gives you the allowances that the outside supers bid are to be at. And what we do is we actually use this to compare the OS bid cost with the actual PM budget. So when you scroll over the PM budget and you see these little red marks in the corner of these cells, you can actually read the notes that Spencer's left, so you can tell there option 1, if contract is labor only, put labor only in this cell, and option 2, if the contract is labor and material by the same vendor, put total of labor and material in this cell. So if labor and material are by separate vendors, you're going to want to put it in this lower cell here. So if we click on the second vendor cell, we can also see Spencer's notes as well there, and it tells you what to do when entering the bid costs into these columns. Column H is the OS bid cost amount. This is the column that we're going to enter the actual agreed upon and stamped invoice for these bids. So you enter it in here, and we actually get the difference from the PM budget from just entering in there. Column G is going to give you the dollar difference between those PM budget and the OS bid cost amounts. So column F, the percentage difference, shares the same function as the dollar difference column. We're just measuring the difference between the PM budget and the OS bid cost. Column I, the OS paid, is how much the super has already paid to the vendor. So we'll get a difference once we enter these paid amounts in the paid column. So that's actually a separate page, but this is where the amount will appear, and it'll give us this difference in column J, the dollar difference, for how much we still owe on the job. So once we have all those amounts in there and figured, the actual process that we're doing this for is to calculate the GPM. So our target GPM is 32.5%, and it's gonna show up here what the actual job's total GPM is. To find these approved OS bid amounts, you're gonna want to go to the shared/reports/2012 reports/invoice approval in Ignite, and you can find them there. When adding these OS bid amounts from the invoice approvals to the GPM, we want to add them to the OS bid column. Be sure that the invoice approvals have these bid accepted stamps on them, and we're going to take that 1500 from the bottom of here and we'll match it over to the correct area on the GPM, which is West Coast Plumbing. If you look at the top of this document, you can see West Coast Plumbing. So you're going to know it's going to be plumbing, and you can see labor and material here. So it's 1500. So we'll match it over to that GPM right now. So we're going to click into this column H where these 18700 is and put 1500 in there. So once we do that, you'll notice a couple changes. So once I put that 1500 in there, you're going to notice that there's a big price difference in this column G, the dollar difference. There's about a $13,000 difference there. That's because I'm using a different invoice for a different job, but this still works perfectly fine for the example. So we're at 1500. The total PM budget is 14396.20. So we're at that, with that 1500, we're at 12806.20 for the total difference in cost. So when this is orange, that's a positive amount, and you can see the one above it, the 3538.52. When it's red and in parentheses, that's a negative. So we also want to be sure to take note of this column F. So if these percentages of difference ever get over 90%, you need to email the PM and let them know what's going on. So again, that's if these percentage differences for the OS bid amounts and the PM budgets are at a 90% difference, you're going to need to email the project manager and let them know. Once we've completed adding these OS bid amounts, we can go ahead and close the invoice approvals since we're not adding any stamps to them at this moment, and we need to save the current GPM to the correct file. So I'll show you where to save that into Ignite. So like I just mentioned, we need to upload the saved and updated GPM to the correct folder in Ignite. So we need to save with the current date that we're working on as well, and the folder we're uploading to is shared, current customers, whatever the current job is that you're working on, and production. So right in the production folder is where we want to upload it. Now I'm going to show you guys how to add draws to the paid tab with the approved and stamped invoice approvals. Once we need to add the draws and payments to the GPM, we can find the invoice approval in the shared/reports/2012 reports/invoice approval folder within Ignite, and we want to be sure to open the invoice approvals that are marked as pay and have the underscore done at the end of it. Those are the stamped and approved invoice approvals that are ready to be paid. If you don't already have the most recently updated GPM file saved on your computer for the current customer that you're working on, you're going to need to go ahead and download it from Ignite. You can find that in the same folder as you found the GPM in before. When adding these draw amounts, we need to be sure to select the Paid tab in the very bottom of this Excel document. Once in the Paid tab, we need to find the correct task and vendor name for that price and bid that we're looking at. So right here it's West Coast Plumbing, it's labor, and we can see the 1500 in there for the dollar difference and 1500 owed. So we're going to need to move over into this first draw column right here. So here's where we're going to add that 1500 into the draw number 1. I'm just marking it as completely paid since that approved stamp is saying that the invoice is ready to be paid off. If you have more than one draw, say you paid half of the 1500, so you paid 1750 and you still owed another 1750, that draw number 2 column would be for the 750 that you owe still, and so on. So now that I've added that 1500 in the first draw, you will also notice that it comes up in this column a little bit over to the left in the OS paid, so that 1500 comes up actually as paid. And we also want to go check out where it is on the GPM, so we'll click on the GPM tab at the bottom. So now that we're back in the GPM, we can see right here where this OS paid amount is, and the 1500 automatically pops up. So now that we've got that marked, we're going to need to mark a received stamp onto the invoice approvals. We'll go ahead and click the stamp button right here in the taskbar in Adobe Acrobat. Once you can see the stamp options, you're going to want to click on Dynamic. From there, we'll go on down and we'll pick the received stamp. Make sure that your received stamp says received by your first and last name, and that it has the current time and date that you've updated this project. Once you've selected the stamp from the options, it'll become this transparent cursor and you can place it anywhere on the document, so just simply left click and it'll drop the stamp wherever you'd like. Now that we've added a received stamp, we must upload both of these documents with the saved and updated document names to Ignite, and let the bookkeeper know that we have finished these invoice approvals and that they are in the live GPM. So I'll show you how to do all that right now. Once you've completed adding the paid draws from the stamped invoice approvals onto the GPM, you can marking the received invoice approvals with a received stamp, you can save the GPM and the invoice approvals to Ignite. When saving the invoice approvals to Ignite, you want to mark with the letters ISD at the end of the updated document. And when saving the live GPM in Ignite, we're going to want to save to the shared current customers with the current customer that you're working on's job name and code .structure / production .structure. Once you've saved both documents correctly, be sure to upload them to the correct folder in Ignite. And once we're all done, we want to be sure that we email the bookkeeper and let them know that the GPM has been updated. That way they can file all these prices.